As the sun painted the Arizona Territory's red rock canyons in crimson and gold, Little Hawk caught an impossible whisper on the evening breeze, drum beats where no drums should be. Following ancient tracking skills passed down through generations of Apache scouts, he discovered what no settler had found in 10 years, a hidden grotto carved into the towering cliffs. There, defying both nature and solitude, lived Sarah McAllister, a widow who'd built her own sanctuary far from the prying eyes of both settlers and tribes. In that moment, watching her tend her secret garden beneath the canyon walls, Little Hawk faced a choice that would challenge everything he'd been taught about the divide between their peoples. What happened next would become a legend, whispered around campfires for generations to come. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Little Hawk's fingers traced the worn leather of his medicine pouch, each crease a memory of the 20 summers he'd served as scout for his people. Within its depths lay the sacred items that marked his path: a golden eagle feather from his first vision quest, a smooth river stone blessed by his grandfather, and dried sage bound with sinew, each object a testament to duty and heritage. The morning sun had barely kissed the eastern rim of the canyon when he began his patrol. His moccasins moved silently across the rust-colored earth, leaving no trace of his passing. This was his way, learned from his father before him, who had also walked these ancient paths as a scout. The elders said Little Hawk had inherited more than just his father's keen eyes. He carried the same quiet wisdom, the patience to read both the land and its people. His reputation among the Apache bands was one of respect, tinged with solitude. They called him "he who listens to stones" for his ability to read the desert's secrets, to find water where others saw only dust, to spot danger in the subtle shift of shadows. But few knew the weight of silence that accompanied such gifts. The settlers who glimpsed him on his rounds spoke of him in whispers. To them, he was the shadow scout, a figure who materialized from the heat waves to warn of approaching danger or guide lost children home. He had earned their cautious trust through years of measured diplomacy, though he kept their gratitude at arm's length. Experience had taught him that trust, like the desert streams, could run dry without warning. Today's patrol took him along the western ridge, where the morning light revealed fresh signs of movement. A broken twig here, a disturbed stone there, small details that wrote stories across the landscape. His medicine pouch swayed gently against his hip as he crouched to examine a partial footprint. The mark was different from the usual patterns, left by settlers' boots or Apache moccasins. Rising slowly, Little Hawk lifted his face to the wind, letting the breeze carry its messages. 20 years of scanning these horizons had taught him that change often came on the wind first, in the scent of distant smoke, in the altered flight patterns of eagles, in the whispered warnings of dust devils that danced across the mesas. He remembered his grandfather's words, spoken on the night he received his medicine pouch: "The land speaks to those who learn its language, grandson. But remember, the greatest wisdom often comes wrapped in mystery." Those words echoed now as he studied the unfamiliar signs before him, his weathered hands adjusting the leather straps of his pouch with practiced ease. The position of scout carried more than just the duty of surveillance. It required a delicate balance between two worlds: the ancient ways of his people and the ever-encroaching tide of settler civilization. Little Hawk had watched the balance shift over the years, had seen how fear could poison both sides, like a rattlesnake's venom, yet he maintained his vigil, believing that understanding could grow even in the rocky soil of suspicion. His solitary patrols had become more than just duty. They were his meditation, his connection to something larger than the conflicts of men. In the embrace of the canyon winds, beneath skies vast enough to humble any human pride, he found a peace that eluded him in the camps of either his people or the settlers. In the fading light of her grotto, Sarah McAllister opened her leather-bound journal, its pages stained with the red dust of her chosen home. Her fingers, once soft with privilege, now calloused from survival, traced the elegant script of entries dating back to Boston. 10 years of transformation captured in ink and determination. April 15, 1863, Boston, my last evening at the Henderson Ladies' Society. How they tittered behind their fans when I announced our departure for the territory. "But darling," Elizabeth Warner said, "whatever will you do without your piano?" They cannot fathom that music exists in places without parlors. Sarah smiled at her younger self's naivete. The desert had taught her that music lived in wind through canyon walls, in rainfall on stone, in the midnight song of coyotes. Her piano sat in some Boston drawing room now, likely being played by hands that had never known the grip of a pickaxe or the texture of medicinal herbs. September 3rd, 1863. On the trail. James insists we press on despite the fever spreading through. The wagon train, his stubbornness, usually such a comfort, worries me now. The medicine woman from the Butterfield stage warned us about water from the last creek. The entry ended there, smudged with tears from a decade past. James had died 3 days later, his final words a whispered apology for bringing her so far. From home. But it wasn't home she'd lost. It was the woman she'd been, the one who measured life by social calls and proper tea times. December 25th, 1863, Canyon Sanctuary, first Christmas alone. Found this grotto after 2 months of wandering. The settlers in the valley below think me dead, and perhaps Sarah Henderson of Boston is. But Sarah McAllister lives. Today, I completed the stone steps to the upper cave. My hands bleed, but my heart beats stronger than ever. She'd learned to write with candor in these pages, to face her fears and victories with equal honesty. The journal became her companion through those first brutal months of solitude, witnessing her transformation from society wife to woman of the wilderness. July 18th, 1864. Discovered a spring behind the north wall today. James would laugh to see me now, covered in mud, dancing like a child. But I understand now what he loved about this wild country. Every discovery feels earned, every success tastes of freedom. The pages that followed chronicled her education by the land itself. Entries detailed which plants healed, which berries fed, how to read weather in the clouds and time in the stars. She'd written of failures too. The first garden lost to frost, the roof that collapsed in a storm, the days of hunger before she learned to set snares. March 3rd, 1865. The Apache passed below today. They don't know I'm here, and I've learned to stay hidden, but I watch them with James's spyglass. Their movement holds such grace, their knowledge of this land so deep. I find myself studying them as I once studied my finishing school lessons, but these teachings matter. Sarah closed the journal, running her hand over its worn cover. A decade of solitude had taught her that loneliness and strength could twine together like desert vines, creating something both vulnerable and unbreakable. She'd built more than just a home in this canyon. She'd built herself anew, pieced together from Boston manners and frontier wisdom, from loss and discovery, from fear and fierce joy. The last light of day painted her grotto's walls with amber shadows. Tomorrow she would add a new entry, never suspecting that her carefully guarded solitude was about to be transformed by a pair of keen eyes and silent footsteps on the canyon rim above. Before dawn each morning, Sarah grasped the smooth oak walking stick that had been James's last gift to her. Its surface, carved with spiraling vines and leaves, had worn smooth beneath her palm through years of use. What had begun as a gentleman's walking stick, crafted for leisurely strolls through Boston Common, had become a tool of survival, a weapon against snakes, a support for climbing, a pole for testing depth in unknown waters. The stick's brass tip, once purely decorative, now helped her dig for roots and herbs in the rocky soil. She'd learned to read the land's secrets, discovering which plants held medicine and which brought death. The morning glory that bloomed in purple cascades down her cliff face wasn't just beauty. Its roots, properly prepared, could break fever. The innocent-looking mushrooms that sprouted after rain could either feed or kill, and she'd paid dearly in sickness to learn the difference. Her irrigation system had evolved through seasons of trial and error. Clay pipes, laboriously shaped by her own hands, carried water from the hidden spring through her terraced gardens. The design had come to her during nights poring over James's engineering books by candlelight, their margins now filled with her own careful notes and observations. Sarah paused in her morning rounds, using the walking stick to point out markers only she could read. Here, the southwestern terrace where tough desert herbs flourished, sage, rosemary, and wild oregano. There, the shadier eastern section where she coaxed more delicate plants to grow, aloe for burns, echinacea for immunity, yarrow for wounds. Each plant represented hours of careful tending, of learning its needs and seasons. The morning ritual of checking her garden defenses had become second nature. She'd learned the hard way that desert creatures were equally attracted to her precious plants. Careful arrangements of thorny branches protected tender shoots from rabbits, while elevated platforms kept the more delicate herbs safe from foraging. Deer. The walking stick served as a measuring tool, ensuring her protective barriers remained at effective heights. Her days followed the sun's arc across the canyon walls. Dawn meant gathering, herbs still wet with dew, eggs from the small flock. Of chickens, she'd traded 3 hand-sewn quilts to acquire. Morning brought maintenance, checking water flow, reinforcing walls, mending tools. Afternoon heat drove her into the cool recesses of her grotto, where she worked at preserving foods and medicines, recording her discoveries in careful script. The walking stick stood sentinel by her door during these indoor hours, its brass tip catching occasional glints of sunlight. She'd added her own carvings to James's original design, practical marks measuring common medicinal doses, notches indicating the passing seasons. The stick had become both compass and calendar, a tangible record of her journey from dependence to mastery. Evenings found her at her highest terrace, the walking stick planted firmly beside her as she watched the sun paint the canyon walls. She discovered that twilight revealed game trails invisible in fuller light, showed her where water seeped from hidden springs, taught her to read the movements of predators in the growing shadows. What had begun as mere survival had evolved into a life of unexpected richness. Her grotto's walls now held carefully constructed shelves of dried herbs and preserved foods. Hand-woven baskets stored seeds and tools. The ingenious smoke vent she'd designed allowed her to work year-round, drawing warm air up in winter and creating cooling drafts in summer. Every improvement, every innovation bore the mark of hard-won knowledge. The walking stick's surface recorded some of this journey in its nicks and scratches, each mark a reminder of lessons learned through necessity. Like her, it had been transformed by this wild place. No longer an ornament of civilization, but a tool of independence, a bridge between what she had been and what she had become. The drumbeat that had drawn Little Hawk to the hidden grotto faded into the evening air, leaving only the whisper of wind through canyon walls. He stood motionless at the rim, watching the widow below tend her garden with the precision of a medicine woman. Her movement spoke of years of practice, each step sure, each gesture purposeful. This was no lost settler stumbling through survival. This was someone who had learned the land's language, though she spoke it with a different accent than his people. His hand moved to his medicine pouch, fingers finding the eagle feather nestled within. Among his people, such a feather offered, in friendship, carried the weight of sacred protection. He had carried this one since his first solo hunt, when a golden eagle had circled above him 3 times before dropping the feather at his feet. A sign, his grandfather said, that the spirits had chosen him as a bridge between worlds. Sarah sensed the watching eyes before she saw them. 10 years of solitude had honed her awareness to the finest edge. Her hand tightened on the walking stick, but she didn't flee to her cave. Something in the quality of this silence felt different from the threat of mountain lion or bear. Slowly, she turned her face to the upper rim. Little Hawk recognized the warrior's calm in her stance. She held her walking stick like a weapon, yet her posture remained open, assessing rather than aggressive. He had seen that same measured readiness in tribal elders during peace talks, the wisdom to prepare for conflict while remaining open. To peace, I mean no harm, he called down in careful English, his voice carrying the measured tones of one accustomed to bridging cultural divides. I am Little Hawk, scout of the White Mountain Apache. Sarah's grip on her walking stick shifted, but didn't relax. I know of you, she replied, her voice rough from lack of use but clear. The settlers in the valley speak of the shadow scout who warns of danger and finds lost children. Little Hawk noted how she said, the settlers, rather than our people. Small words could carry heavy meaning. He began his descent down the canyon wall, his movements deliberately slow and visible. The path she had carved into the rock face showed clever use of natural handholds, another sign of her learned wisdom. You have built something remarkable here, he said as he reached the main terrace. His eyes took in the intricate irrigation system, the carefully planned gardens, the smoke vent engineered to be nearly invisible from below. Few could have done this alone. Not all strength lies in numbers, Sarah responded, but her stance softened slightly. She recognized respect when it was offered, having learned to hear truth in tone rather than words alone. Little Hawk inclined his head in acknowledgement. The land has taught you well. He gestured to her gardens. I see you grow medicine plants. In the Apache way, separate beds for those that need shade and those that thrive in sun. A flicker of surprise crossed Sarah's weathered features. I learned through watching, she admitted. Your people's healing women sometimes gather herbs in the valley below. I studied their choices, their timing with the seasons. You watch. With good eyes. Little Hawk's hand returned to his medicine pouch, but knowledge gained in silence can only grow so far. There are deeper teachings in these plants, secrets passed down through generations. Sarah's gaze sharpened with interest, though caution still lined her face. Why have you come? After all these years, why reveal my presence now? Little Hawk withdrew the eagle feather, holding it flat across his palms in the traditional manner of offering. Because the spirits speak in many voices, and wisdom can wear many faces. My grandfather taught me that when the sacred and the practical meet, we must pay attention. An eagle feather, Sarah breathed, recognition dawning in her eyes. During her years of observation, she had seen such feathers exchanged in ceremonies on the valley floor. This carries meaning among your people. It carries obligation, Little Hawk corrected gently. To offer protection, to share knowledge, to recognize the worth of another's path. Among my people, such an offering cannot be made lightly, nor refused without consequence. Sarah studied him with eyes that had learned to read storm clouds and predator signs. And if I accept, what then? Then I teach you what you could not learn from watching alone, the deeper healing in these plants, the prayers that must be spoken when gathering them, the times when the moon makes their power strongest. He paused, letting the weight of the offer settle. And you teach me how you have adapted our ways to create this. He gestured to her garden sanctuary. Such knowledge could help many, both Apache and settler. The sun had begun its descent, painting the canyon walls in deepening shades of red and gold. Sarah's fingers traced the carved vines on her walking stick, a habit born of deep thought. There will be those who disapprove, she said finally, on both sides. Little Hawk's laugh was soft but genuine. There are always those who fear the mixing of waters, forgetting that all rivers eventually join. I have spent my life walking between worlds, What matters is not the approval of others, but the rightness of the path. Sarah stepped forward then, her movement deliberate. With the same care she used when handling her most precious herbs, she extended her hand and let her fingers brush the eagle feather. "I accept," she said simply, "and I offer my own token in return." She reached into a pocket of her worn dress and withdrew a small leather pouch. "Seeds," she explained, "from plants I've crossbred to survive the harshest seasons. New medicine for an ancient land." Little Hawk accepted the pouch with equal gravity, recognizing the years of knowledge it represented. As he tucked it into his medicine bag alongside his own sacred items, both of them understood that more than just objects had been exchanged. In the deepening twilight of the canyon, watched by ancient walls that had seen countless seasons of change, two paths had joined to form something new. Dawn painted the canyon walls in shades of amber when Little Hawk returned, carrying a clay vessel wrapped carefully in rabbit skins. Sarah stood at her garden's edge, watching as he unwrapped the pottery with reverent hands. The vessel's surface bore intricate patterns, spiraling lines that spoke of water's flow, angular marks representing mountains and clouds. "My grandmother shaped this vessel 40 summers ago," Little Hawk explained, his weathered fingers tracing the designs. "She taught that the clay remembers the hands that form it, and the water takes on the wisdom of its container." He looked up at Sarah's irrigation system, clay pipes of her own making running like veins through the terraced gardens. "You understand something of this already." Sarah knelt beside him, her calloused hands hovering near the vessel's surface. "My pipes are crude compared to this," she admitted. "I shaped them for function, not beauty." "Function is its own beauty," Little Hawk responded, "but there are secrets in these patterns. See how this line curves?" He guided her finger along a particular spiral. "It makes the water move in ways that keep it cool, even in the hottest sun. And these marks?" He indicated the angular designs. "They remind the water of its journey from mountain to valley." As the morning progressed, Little Hawk taught her the traditional methods of preparing clay, how to read the earth for signs of the best deposits, the prayers that must be spoken while gathering it. Sarah's own knowledge of the canyon's soil, combined with his ancestral wisdom, creating something new. "Your hands remember," he observed as she worked the clay he had brought, her movements becoming more assured with each passing moment. "They know the language of earth and water, even if they learned it in silence." Sarah smiled, a rare expression that softened the wind-weathered lines of her face. "The land has been my teacher," she said, "but it speaks in whispers. Your peoples. Knowledge gives voice to what I've only guessed at." As she worked, she shared her own discoveries, how she had learned to strengthen her pipes by mixing certain desert grasses into the clay, how she had developed a system of filtering water through layers of sand and charcoal. Little Hawk listened with genuine interest, recognizing innovations that could benefit his own people. "This is why the eagle feather called me here," he said thoughtfully, watching her demonstrate her filtering technique. "Knowledge grows when different wisdoms meet, like tributaries joining to form a stronger river." The sun had climbed high when Sarah finally set aside her work, a new vessel taking shape, its surface bearing both traditional Apache patterns and her own adaptations. Little Hawk nodded in approval. "You honor the old ways while finding new paths. This is good medicine." But as they cleaned their hands in a basin of clear spring water, a shadow passed overhead, an Apache hunting party riding along the canyon rim. Little Hawk's expression remained calm, but Sarah saw how his shoulders tensed, how his eyes tracked their movement until they passed from view. "There will be questions," he said quietly. "Not all understand that wisdom can wear a settler's face." Sarah's response carried the hard-earned philosophy of her years alone. "Questions don't frighten me as much as ignorance. At least questions can lead to understanding." Little Hawk smiled at that, hearing in her words an echo of his grandfather's teachings. As he gathered his things to leave, he paused, looking back at the vessel they had created together. "Tomorrow, I will show you how to make the sacred pigments for marking the clay. Some stories can only be told in color." Sarah nodded, understanding that more than pottery techniques were being passed between them. Each lesson was a thread in a larger weaving, a pattern that neither of them could fully see yet, but both could feel taking shape. The afternoon heat had driven them into the cool shadows of Sarah's grotto, where Little Hawk watched her hands move with practiced ease as she sorted herbs for drying. A glint of silver caught his eye, a locket that had slipped free from beneath her worn collar, its surface scratched, but still bearing traces of fine engraving. Sarah noticed his gaze and touched the locket with unconscious familiarity. "A piece of another life," she said softly. After a moment's hesitation, she unclasped the chain and opened the silver case, revealing 2 miniature paintings protected behind glass. "My parents," she explained, holding it where Little Hawk could see. "Painted in Boston, in a world measured by calling cards and crystal glasses." The portraits showed a couple dressed in fine clothes, their poses formal, but their eyes kind. The woman wore pearls that matched her daughter's once smooth hands. The man's watch chain spoke of prosperity and position. Little Hawk studied them with the same careful attention he gave to reading trail signs. "They still live?" he asked, noting how Sarah's fingers trembled slightly against the silver. "The fever took them both in 62, she replied, "before James, and I left for the territory." Perhaps that was a mercy. They never had to know how their daughter disappeared into the wilderness. A complicated smile touched her lips. Though Mother would be horrified to see what her finishing school education has become. She set aside her herbs and reached into a wooden chest, withdrawing a carefully preserved piece of paper. "Their last letter," she said, unfolding it with gentle hands. "Listen to how they worried about my future. Dearest Sarah, we implore you to reconsider this wild scheme. What of your music, your watercolors? What of the life we prepared you for?" Little Hawk nodded thoughtfully. "They saw only what would be lost, not what might be gained." "Yes." Sarah's laugh held both sadness and liberation. They couldn't imagine that their pampered daughter would learn to set bones, to birth lambs, to read weather in the sky's changing face, that her watercolor skills would be used to document medicinal plants, or that she would find music in wind. Through canyon walls, she touched one of the portraits gently. "Father was a professor of classical literature. He taught me Greek and Latin. Never guessing those dead languages would help me understand the scientific names of plants, or that his lessons about ancient healing arts would serve me in this new world. The old ways prepare us for new paths," Little Hawk observed, "even when we cannot see how." "James understood that," Sarah said, her voice softening as she spoke of her late husband. "He was an engineer who saw poetry in bridge building, who taught me that beauty and function could serve the same purpose." She gestured to her carefully engineered terraces outside. "These gardens grow from his lessons as much as from your people's wisdom." Little Hawk watched as she closed the locket, noting how she handled it like one of her precious herbs, with respect for its power to heal or harm. "You carry them with honor," he said, "not as chains to the past, but as roots that grow deeper than Boston soil." Sarah's eyes met his, recognizing the truth in his words. "When I first came here, I tried to forget everything of that life. I thought survival meant erasing who I had been." She touched the rough wool of her dress, then the smooth silver of the locket. "But wisdom comes from learning to weave both worlds together, doesn't it? Like the clay vessel we shaped," Little Hawk agreed, "carrying old patterns and new designs together." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "My people tell of butterflies that carry the colors of their caterpillar, self even as they fly. Your Boston self is not lost, but transformed." Sarah returned the letter to its chest and resumed her work with the herbs, her movements sure and purposeful. The locket caught the late afternoon light. its silver surface now seeming less a relic of the past and more a bridge between worlds, much like the woman who wore it, who had learned to translate society's lessons into wilderness wisdom. Little Hawk arrived at dawn, carrying a small beaded pouch that gleamed with generations of ceremonial significance. The morning air held an edge of tension. He had noticed increased movement in the valleys below, both from his people and from settler patrols. Their secret knowledge-sharing could not remain hidden forever. "We must speak of difficult things," he said, settling cross-legged on a flat stone near Sarah's herb garden. From the ceremonial pouch, he withdrew sacred tobacco, beginning the ritual that his people used when words carried heavy weight. "Smoke rises like truth," he explained, preparing the pipe with practiced movements. "It cannot be caught or contained, just as truth must flow freely between friends." Sarah recognized the gravity of the moment and sat opposite him, her own posture reflecting years of formal Boston training unconsciously merged with Apache dignity. "There's been talk in the valley," she said, watching him work. "I heard it yesterday when I went to trade herbs with the Watson homestead." Little Hawk's hands stilled briefly. "You've shown yourself?" A note of concern deepened his voice, not by choice. Sarah's fingers worried the hem of her sleeve. "Their youngest boy followed my tracks. Found me gathering golden seal near the Greek. Martha Watson recognized my voice, though she crossed herself like she'd seen a ghost." A tired smile touched her lips. "In a way, I suppose she had." Little Hawk lit the pipe with a coal from Sarah's morning fire, the sacred tobacco catching with a gentle glow. "Among my people also, there are whispers. The young warriors speak of betrayal, of secrets shared with white eyes." He drew deeply from the pipe, then passed it to Sarah with the formal gestures of his people. "The tribal council questions my judgment." Sarah accepted the pipe with appropriate reverence, having learned its significance through their many conversations. "Will they forbid you to return?" The fear in her voice was not for herself. 10 years of solitude had taught her self-reliance, but for the friendship that had brought such unexpected richness to her life. "They cannot forbid what they do not understand." Little Hawk's voice held the patience of one long accustomed to walking between worlds. "But there are some who see any bridge between our peoples as a threat to our ways." Sarah took a careful draw from the pipe before passing it back. "Martha Watson spoke of sending men to rescue me. They cannot understand that I need no rescue, that this life is my choice." She gestured to her thriving gardens, the smoke-cured, herbs hanging from her cave's mouth, the innovative tools that blended settlercraft with Apache wisdom. "This is who I am now." "Two rivers joining," Little Hawk nodded, "creating a new path through ancient stone." He tapped the spent tobacco into the earth with ritual care. "But rivers can be dammed by those who fear their flow." The morning sun had climbed higher, burning away the dawn mist, but not the weight of their concerns. Sarah stood, brushing dust from her skirts with unconscious propriety. "What do we do?" Little Hawk returned the pipe to its beaded pouch. "Each movement measured and thoughtful. We continue. Knowledge shared is like water seeping through rock. It will find its way, wearing new channels through old barriers." He rose, adjusting the medicine pouch at his hip. "But we must be cautious. The time is coming when both our peoples must decide if wisdom can wear many faces." Sarah touched the eagle feather she now wore, braided into her gray-streaked hair. "Whatever comes," she said with quiet determination, "we have chosen our path." "Yes," Little Hawk agreed, scanning the canyon rim for watching eyes. "But others may try to choose differently for us. Be vigilant, friend of my heart. The storm gathers before the rain falls." Little Hawk saw the storm coming before the first. Clouds gathered. The desert spoke its warnings in a language he'd learned from childhood. The nervous flutter of birds heading to lower ground. The strange stillness in air that usually danced with heat waves. The peculiar yellow cast to the morning light. But it was Sarah who recognized this wasn't just another summer storm. The pressure's dropping too fast, she said, her Boston-educated mind applying scientific understanding to what his instincts told him. She stood at the entrance of her deeper cave, the one she called her storm shelter, watching the sky with worried eyes, like the nor'easters that used to sink ships off Massachusetts Bay. Together they worked with the urgent efficiency of those who understand nature's deadly moods. Sarah's years of solitude had taught her to prepare for disaster, while Little Hawk's tribal knowledge filled the gaps in her planning. They moved her precious herbs and medicines to the storm shelter, secured her garden's irrigation systems, and reinforced the protective barriers around her terraces. "The cave goes deeper than you'd think," Sarah explained as they carried in the last of her crucial supplies. "Found it during my second winter here. It saved my life more than once." The shelter's walls bore the marks of her improvements, carefully carved niches for storage, a sophisticated ventilation system that would keep them breathing even if the entrance became blocked, multiple passages that could serve as escape routes. Little Hawk examined her work with approval. "You think like an Apache scout, always planning for the worst, while hoping for better." The storm hit with the fury of a sky spirit's rage. Wind howled through the canyon like 1,000 angry voices, carrying stinging sand and debris. Rain fell in sheets so dense they seemed solid, transforming the usually dry canyon into a network of raging streams. In the shelter's protected darkness, Sarah and Little Hawk listened to nature's violence while tending a small fire she'd engineered to burn safely, even in the enclosed space. "Tell me about the worst storm you've weathered," Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the chaos outside. She'd learned long ago that sharing stories helped master fear. Little Hawk added a small piece of precious firewood to their flames. 5. Summers ago, in the high country, I was guiding a party of young hunters when the sky turned green as cave moss. We found shelter in a bear's cave. Empty, thankfully. His laugh was soft but genuine. The bear returned during the storm. We ended up sharing the space, all of us too concerned with the weather's fury to worry about each other. Sarah smiled, recognizing the teaching in his tale, how nature's extremes could erase artificial boundaries. "My first winter here," she offered in return. "A blizzard trapped me in this very cave for 6 days. I was still learning then, still clinging to proper Boston ways. That week taught me that survival cares nothing for social graces. A particularly violent gust shook loose rocks somewhere above them, sending a shower of dust through the ventilation system. Little Hawk noticed how Sarah's hand moved instinctively to check that the airflow remained clear, even as she continued her story. She had learned to think on multiple levels, like his people's most experienced elders. "The storm is speaking," he said during a momentary lull in the wind's fury. "Listen, beneath the chaos there is pattern. My grandmother taught that great storms come to reshape the land, to remind us that change is part of nature's way." Sarah nodded, understanding. "Like how this storm is reshaping more than just the canyon. The waters will force both settlers and Apache to higher ground. They'll have to see each other, perhaps even help each other survive." "You see clearly," Little Hawk approved. Already the young men I passed on my way here were preparing to move their families to the same plateaus, where settler wagons were gathering. Nature forces us to acknowledge our common needs. Through the night, they shared more stories, their voices weaving together beneath the storm's percussion. When dawn finally broke, they emerged to find the canyon transformed. Sarah's carefully engineered terraces had held, though many plants lay flattened. The hidden spring's flow had doubled, creating new channels that would require adaptation. Standing in the morning light, surveying the storm's aftermath, Sarah and Little Hawk recognized that more than the landscape had shifted during the night. Their friendship, tested by nature's fury, had deepened into something as strong as the bedrock beneath their feet. Like the storm-carved channels below, new paths had been created that could not be undone. The warning drum's deep pulse echoed through the canyon at sunset, its rhythm carrying messages that made Little Hawk's shoulders tense. To most settlers, it would sound like distant thunder, but to those who knew the ancient patterns, it spoke of council meetings and growing unrest. Standing at Sarah's garden wall, he translated the beats aloud, his voice grave. The elders gather, decisions must be made. The old ways are threatened. His hands unconsciously matched the drum's rhythm. They're calling all scouts to return, to the winter camp, 3 days from now, when the moon is half full. Sarah set down her gathering basket, the fresh herbs inside forgotten. Over the months of their friendship, she'd learned to read the subtle shifts in Little Hawk's demeanor that spoke louder than words. They're going to force you to choose, aren't they? Red Fox has been speaking against me in council. Little Hawk's voice held no anger, only a deep weariness. He is young, ambitious, and speaks with the kind of certainty that only the inexperienced can claim. To him, our sharing of knowledge is a betrayal of sacred traditions. The drum's rhythm changed, becoming more complex, and Little Hawk listened with growing concern. He tells them that I have revealed tribal secrets, that I have weakened our people's medicine by sharing it with... He paused, choosing his words carefully. With a white woman, Sarah finished for him, her tone matter-of-fact. 10 years of solitude had burned away any need for gentle phrases. Never mind that I've used that knowledge to heal their children when fever swept through the winter camp last season. Little Hawk nodded, remembering how she had worked tirelessly to prepare remedies, asking him to deliver them secretly to the camp's edge. Her medicines, combining Apache wisdom with techniques learned from Boston doctors, had saved many lives. Red Fox conveniently forgets that debt, he said, or perhaps it shames him to acknowledge it. The drum's message shifted again, and Sarah saw pain flash across her friend's weathered features. What now? They speak of dreams and omens, signs that the spirits are angry. His hand moved to his medicine pouch, touching the sacred items within. Red Fox claims his vision quest showed him an eagle falling from the sky, its feathers turned to ash. He says it warns against mixing our people's ways. Sarah's laugh held no humor. Convenient, how spirits always seem to agree with those who claim to speak for them. Be careful, Little Hawk cautioned, though his eyes showed understanding. Such words, even spoken in private, can be dangerous. The people's faith in the spirit world runs deep. He paused, listening as the drum's rhythm began to fade. Red Fox has many followers among the young warriors. They see our changing world and seek to fight it rather than understand it. Sarah moved to check her drying herbs, her movements sharp with suppressed emotion. And what of your visions, Little Hawk? What do the spirits tell you? He was quiet for a long moment, watching the sunset paint the canyon walls in shades of blood and gold. My grandfather taught me that spirits speak through more than dreams. They speak through the success of a healing, through the strength of a friendship, through the growth of understanding between peoples. His hand gestured to her thriving gardens. What we have built here, is this not also a sign? The drum's last echoes faded into evening silence, but its message hung heavy in the air between them. Sarah touched the eagle feather in her hair, its presence both comfort and concern. 3 days, she said softly. What will you tell them? Little Hawk's response carried the weight of one who had long walked between worlds. I will tell them. Truth, though they may not wish to hear it. That medicine belongs to no single people, that wisdom grows stronger when traditions meet and merge, that the future cannot be stopped any more than the river's flow. The gathering dusk cast long shadows across Sarah's terraced gardens, where Apache healing plants grew alongside settler herbs in rows that spoke of both peoples' knowledge. Like the plants themselves, their friendship had grown deep roots, drawing strength from 2 different traditions to create something new and vital. Whatever comes, Sarah said finally. "We have proved that understanding between our peoples is possible. They cannot unknow what we have shown them." Little Hawk touched the warning drum's rhythm once more against his thigh, but this time the beat spoke of determination rather than doom. "No," he agreed, "they cannot unknow it, and therein lies our hope." Sarah discovered the broken fence post at dawn, its splintered wood still fresh enough that sap glistened in the early light. The crude cross carved into its surface needed no interpretation. Some of the valley settlers had decided to take matters into their own hands. Next to it lay her overturned herb baskets, the carefully dried medicines trampled into the dust, and a note scratched in rough letters. "Witch woman, walk with Indians." She was gathering the scattered herbs when Little Hawk materialized from the morning shadows. One look at the scene, and his hand went to his knife. But Sarah shook her head. "Violence won't solve this," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "It will only prove their fears right." "They destroyed medicine meant to heal their own people," Little Hawk observed, helping her salvage what herbs they could. "Fear makes men blind to their own interests." Sarah's fingers brushed the crude cross carved into the post. "When I first came west, I thought I was leaving behind Boston's rigid thinking. Now I see that walls in the mind travel wherever people go." She straightened, brushing dust from her skirts with the unconscious gesture of her proper upbringing. "Martha Watson warned me this might happen. Her husband Samuel has been stirring up the valley folk, speaking of dark arts and heathen alliances." Little Hawk examined the tracks around the destruction, reading the story written in disturbed soil. 3 men, one with a limp. They came, before first light, carrying torches they didn't light. His voice held the professional detachment of a scout, but Sarah saw how his jaw tightened. "They know where to find you now." "They've always known," Sarah replied, beginning to sort through the ruined herbs. "What's changed is their courage to act. The drought has made everyone afraid, and afraid people need someone to blame." She held up a handful of crushed golden seal. "These could have helped their fevered children, but they'd rather destroy it than accept help that bridges our worlds." The morning sun climbed higher, casting harsh light on the scene of destruction. Little Hawk helped Sarah right her baskets, his movements deliberate and controlled. "Samuel Watson," he said thoughtfully. "He lost a brother to Apache arrows 5 summers ago. Grief can curdle into poison if it's not cleansed. And now he sees his wife trading for my medicines, his neighbors speaking of the healing woman in the hills." Sarah's laugh held no mirth. "A woman who should be dead, who lives alone but thrives, who learns Apache ways. No wonder he fears witchcraft. It's easier than accepting that his world is changing." Little Hawk touched the broken fence post, his weathered fingers tracing the crude cross. "My people also speak of witchcraft," he said quietly. "Red Fox calls you a spirit stealer, claims you take our medicine power for dark purposes. Fear wears many faces, but its heart is always the same." Sarah began to rebuild the fence, her movements speaking of long practice in self-reliance. Little Hawk worked beside her, their shared labor needing no words. Together they restored them, a boundary, though both knew it was more symbol than protection. "The valley settlers are planning something larger," Little Hawk said as they finished. "I've seen their men gathering at night, passing bottles and feeding their anger with strong drink. They speak of cleansing the hills of dark influences." "And your people?" Sarah asked, though she could read the answer in his face. "Red Fox's war party grows. They say they will protect our sacred knowledge by force if needed." He gazed toward the distant valley. "2 storms gathering, and we stand between them." Sarah touched the eagle feather in her hair, its presence a reminder of all they had built together. "We've weathered storms before. Not like this." Little Hawk's voice was gentle but firm. "Natural storms follow the laws of wind and rain. The storms in men's hearts make their own rules." He straightened, adjusting his medicine pouch. "I must return to the winter camp. The council fire burns tonight, and my voice must be heard." Sarah nodded, understanding the weight of his duty. "Go. I'll be careful." She managed a smile that almost reached her eyes. "I survived 10 years alone. I can manage a few more days." But as Little Hawk melted back into the canyon shadows, they both knew that solitude was no longer the shelter it had once been. The broken fence post stood as testament to a boundary crossed, a warning that the life they had built between two worlds was about to face its greatest test. The small hand mirror had been Sarah's last link to her Boston life, a silver-backed piece that had witnessed her transformation from society lady to wilderness healer. Now it lay shattered at her feet, its fragments reflecting the chaos that had erupted in her sanctuary. Above her, voices carried on the wind as Apache warriors moved along the canyon rim, while below, settler torches flickered like angry fireflies in the gathering dusk. She had never expected the betrayal to come from Morning Star, Little Hawk's own sister. The young woman had appeared at dawn, ostensibly seeking healing for her infant's cough. Sarah had welcomed her, sharing the remedies she and Little Hawk had refined together. Only when the warning drum's sudden rhythm sent Morning Star hurrying away did Sarah understand. The visit had been to confirm her location for both hunting parties. The mirror had shattered when the first rocks fell from above, deliberately dislodged by warriors following Red Fox's orders. Sarah gathered her most essential medicines with practiced speed, her Boston-bred hands steady despite the betrayal burning in her chest. The mirror's broken pieces caught the last sunlight, throwing fragments of fire across her cave walls. "Morning Star!" Little Hawk's voice carried from somewhere above, heavy with disbelief. "Why?" His sister's response rang clear in the canyon air. "Because you forgot your people's ways, brother. Because this white woman has turned you from our path." A pause, then softer. "The council would have banished you. This way, at least, you can regain your honor by standing with us." Sarah heard the pain in Little Hawk's reply. "And who will heal your son's cough when winter comes? Who will remember the medicines we've created together, stronger than either tradition alone? Better he should cough than grow up in a world where our sacred ways are given to outsiders." Red Fox's voice now, sharp with triumph. "See how easily your weakness was turned against you, Little Hawk. Even your own blood chooses tribal loyalty over your betrayal." Below, Samuel Watson's voice carried up from the valley floor. "Smoke her out. The witch has turned even the savages against their own kind. She's a demon in woman's form." The mirror fragments showed Sarah multiple views of her world falling apart. Little Hawk, surrounded by warriors on the rim above, settlers advancing. With torches below, her carefully tended gardens caught between two waves of destruction. 10 years of solitary peace shattered by fear, wearing different faces. "You speak of loyalty?" Little Hawk's voice had taken on the formal tones he used in council. "Let me tell you what I have seen of loyalty. I watched this woman prepare medicines, day and night when fever struck our winter camp. She did not ask if the sick were Apache or settler. She did not demand payment or praise. She stole our sacred knowledge." Red Fox's answer carried the heat of long-nursed grievance. "Knowledge cannot be stolen," Little Hawk responded. "Like water, it flows where it will. Our ancestors knew this. Why do you think they shared healing wisdom with other tribes? Because they understood that medicine belongs to all who suffer." Sarah used these precious moments to gather her most important possessions, the journal that documented their shared discoveries, the eagle feather that symbolized their bond, the herbs they had developed together. The mirror fragments showed her multiple images of herself moving through the cave, each reflection a different piece of who she had become. A settler's voice carried up from below. "Samuel, there's Apache warriors on the rim. They've come to defend their witch." "No!" Red Fox shouted down. "We've come to cleanse our tribe's honor. The woman has corrupted our ways." In that moment of confusion, Sarah saw her chance. While both groups focused on each other, she could slip away through the hidden back passages she'd spent years preparing. But the thought died as quickly as it formed. Escape would mean abandoning everything they had built, letting fear triumph over understanding. Little Hawk must have sensed her decision. "Sarah," his voice held warning, "the eclipse passage. Remember what I taught you about moving in darkness?" But Sarah had already made her choice. She stepped to the cave's entrance, empty hands raised to show she carried no weapons. The mirror, fragments at her feet, caught her image from multiple angles. Boston lady, wilderness survivor, healer, friend, bridge between worlds. "Look at yourselves." Her voice, unused to shouting, nevertheless carried to both groups. Apache warriors, ready to spill blood over shared medicine. Settler men prepared to burn knowledge that could save their children. Is this the wisdom either of your peoples taught you? The silence that followed felt like the pause before a thunderclap. Sarah continued, her words carrying the weight of 10 years' solitude and understanding. "Morning Star, your baby's cough medicine came from both our people's knowledge. Samuel Watson, the poultice that saved your wife's leg combined Apache herbs with Boston medical techniques. Will you destroy these things just to keep your fears alive?" Red Fox's voice cut through the dusk. "Pretty words cannot change the truth. You have taken what was not yours to take." "No," Little Hawk spoke, and Sarah heard him moving closer to the edge. "She has given what was hers to give, as I have given what was mine. Together we have created something new, something needed in this changing world." The mirror fragments caught the last light of day, throwing reflections that danced across cave. Walls and faces alike. In their scattered light, Sarah saw the moment balancing on a knife's edge. Fear and understanding, destruction and wisdom, past and future, all hanging in the balance. Then Morningstar's baby coughed, a sharp sound in the gathering dark, and his mother's instinctive move to comfort him seemed to break some spell. The child's need was immediate, real, caring nothing for the artificial boundaries adults had drawn. Samuel Watson's voice carried unexpected uncertainty. "The medicine she made, it truly comes from both people's knowledge?" "Yes," Little Hawk answered, his voice carrying the simple weight of truth, "as does the salve that healed your burns last summer, and the tea that eases your wife's winter breathing." The mirror's largest fragment showed Sarah one final reflection, a woman standing between worlds, no longer fully belonging to either, but perhaps helping to build something greater than both. As darkness settled over the canyon, she watched. The torchlights below waver, saw shadows move uncertainly along the rim above. The night wind carried the scent of sage and the sound of hard choices being made. Behind her the shattered mirror lay in pieces, but in each fragment a different truth waited to be recognized. The old reflection was broken, but perhaps that was necessary, for sometimes, Sarah realized, you had to shatter the old image completely before a new picture could emerge. In the pre-dawn darkness, Little Hawk knelt beside a small fire in Sarah's cave, the ancient patterns of war paint laid out before him in clay pots. Each color carried generations of meaning: red ochre for strength, black for spirit walking, white for the ancestors' wisdom. His hands moved with ritual sureness, though his heart felt the weight of what was to come. "You don't have to stay," he told Sarah, who watched from across the flames. "The hidden paths could take you to safety." Before full light, Sarah continued grinding medicines with her stone mortar, the rhythmic sound matching his paint preparation. "This is my home," she said simply. "More than that, it's what we built together. I won't abandon it to fear." Little Hawk began the sacred application, starting with a line of red ochre from his left temple to jaw. "My grandfather would say, 'You have an Apache spirit in a settler's body.' Your grandfather," Sarah noted, "is not here to help us face the council at midday." She set aside her mortar and picked up one of the paint pots. "Show me the patterns. If we're to defend what we've built, I should understand its deepest meanings." Little Hawk's hands stilled. Teaching war paint patterns to an outsider crossed. Yet another boundary. But hadn't their entire friendship been about transcending such limits? He dipped his fingers in the black paint and demonstrated the first sacred line. "This speaks of night vision, seeing truth in darkness." Sarah followed. his movement precisely, adding the line to his right temple with surprising skill. Her fingers, so sure with healing herbs, showed the same steadiness with warrior's paint. And this one, she touched the white clay. Protection, he explained, not just of body, but of spirit. The ancestors watch through these marks. He felt the weight of tradition in every line, even as they broke with it. In the old days, warriors would fast and pray for 3 days before applying these patterns. "We don't have 3 days," Sarah observed, adding the protective white streak with careful precision. "But perhaps the spirits understand that too." Little Hawk smiled despite the gravity of their situation. "You sound like my grandfather now." As the patterns grew on his skin, Little Hawk shared their meanings. The zigzag of red across his forehead for lightning's power, the black circles at his cheekbones for owl's wisdom in darkness, the white handprint over his heart for the touch of ancestral guidance. "There's a pattern here," Sarah said thoughtfully, stepping back to study her work. "Like the way different herbs work together in medicine. Each mark strengthens the others." "Yes." Little Hawk felt a surge of pride in her understanding. "The patterns are a kind of medicine themselves. They prepare the spirit as much as the body." Sarah cleaned her hands on a cloth, leaving streaks of sacred colors. "Will the council accept my presence?" "They must." Little Hawk stood, feeling the power of the patterns settling into his skin. "You are part of this medicine now. The paint on my face comes from your hands as well as mine. That makes you part of the ceremony." The rising sun sent its first rays into the cave, catching the paint pots and making them glow like ember. Sarah began packing her medicine bundles, proof of their shared knowledge and its value. "What will you tell them?" "Truth," Little Hawk replied, checking his reflection in a pool of still water. The warrior who looked back wore paint applied by both Apache and settler hands, perhaps the first such occurrence in his people's history. That medicine grows stronger when different wisdoms flow together, that the future cannot be stopped by holding to the past alone. He touched the white handprint over his heart, feeling the rightness of their preparation. "The patterns say we must be both strong and wise today, strong enough to stand before their anger, wise enough to show them a better path." Sarah nodded, her own face showing the calm of one who had faced solitude and fear and found strength in both. Outside, they could hear the first drums beginning, calling the council to gather. The paint on Little Hawk's face dried in the morning air, each pattern a testament to what they had created together, tradition and innovation, past and future, two people's wisdom made stronger by sharing. The council fire cast dancing shadows across the gathered faces of the tribe. At its center, Chief Grey Wolf sat with the ceremonial eagle feather of leadership upright in his silver hair, its white tip catching the firelight. Before him stood Little Hawk, the war paint patterns stark against his skin, while Sarah waited. At the edge of the circle, her presence both challenge and catalyst. "You bring a settler woman to our sacred council." Red Fox's voice carried outrage, but Little Hawk noted how the younger warrior's eyes kept darting to the chief's feather. This was about more than just their shared medicines. It was a battle for the tribe's future direction. Grey Wolf raised his hand for silence, his weathered features revealing nothing. "Little Hawk has invoked the right of medicine teaching. Even our oldest laws say such matters must be heard in council." The chief's eyes settled on Sarah. "Though never before has an outsider been part of that hearing. The medicines we bring know nothing of, insider or outsider." Little Hawk responded, his voice carrying the formal tones of council speech. "They ask only to heal." From the shadows, Morning Star stepped forward, her baby wrapped close against her chest. The infant's breathing sounded easier now, testament to Sarah's remedies. "My brother speaks truth about the healing," she said softly, "but Red Fox speaks truth about our traditions. How do we choose between them?" Grey Wolf's hand moved to touch the chief's feather, a gesture Little Hawk had seen him make countless times when wrestling with difficult decisions. "Show us these medicines you have created together." Sarah moved forward with quiet dignity, laying out her medicine bundles. Each packet was wrapped in cloth marked with both Apache symbols and English words, a written language of healing they had developed together. "This one," she began, "combines your sacred red willow bark with settler's feverfew. Together they fight fever more strongly than either alone." The council members leaned forward despite themselves, healing wisdom carrying its own authority. Sarah continued, her voice steady. "This salve uses your people's knowledge of yucca, merged with techniques I learned in Boston hospitals. It heals burns clean, leaving less scarring." "And this proves what?" Red Fox interrupted. "That she can take our medicine ways and change them to settler ways?" "It proves that healing has no boundaries," Little Hawk countered. "Just as pain knows no tribe, medicine should know no limits." Grey Wolf raised the chief's feather, and silence fell immediately. "When I was a young warrior," he began in the storytelling voice that commanded attention, "I took an arrow in my chest. Our medicine man could not help me, nor could the settler. Doctor in the fort. It was an old Mexican curandera who saved my life, using knowledge that was neither Apache nor white." He looked at the medicine bundles thoughtfully. "Should she not have helped me because her wisdom came from different gods?" A murmur ran through the council circle. Red Fox stepped forward, his own war paint catching the firelight. "Chief, this is different. This woman lives in our sacred hunting grounds, learns our secret ways, and uses them to heal all who come to her." Morningstar interrupted, her voice carrying unexpected strength. "My son breathes easily now because she combined our knowledge with her own." She met her brother's eyes. "I was wrong to betray her location. Fear made me forget the debt we owe." Grey Wolf stood, the chief's feather casting a long shadow in the firelight. "Our ancestors survived by learning, by taking what was useful from each new thing they encountered. They did not fear new medicine. They feared only the sickness that medicine fought." He turned to Little Hawk. "But change must be guided with wisdom, not forced with haste." "We understand," Little Hawk responded, feeling Sarah's quiet presence behind him like a source of strength. "We ask only that the council judge our medicine by its healing, not its origin." The chief's feather dipped once in acknowledgement. "Tomorrow, when the sun stands highest, we will test these mixed medicines against the old ways. Those who are sick or injured may choose their treatment." His eyes swept the circle. "Let the healing itself speak its truth." As the council fire burned lower, Little Hawk felt the weight of what they had gained and what still lay ahead. The chief's feather had granted them a chance, but tomorrow would determine whether wisdom could truly bridge the gap between worlds. In the dying firelight, he saw Sarah's face set with quiet determination, and knew she understood as well. They had won the right to prove their vision, but now they had to show that some boundaries were meant to be crossed for the good of all. The midday sun cast no shadows when Sarah and Little Hawk laid out their medicines before the gathered tribe. Beside their innovative remedies, Red Fox had arranged traditional healing items, each bundle a testament to generations of Apache wisdom. Between these two paths of healing sat Grey Wolf's peace pipe, its carved bowl depicting the ancient story of how first man learned medicine from the spirits. The first test came sooner than expected. 2 hunters carried in young deer, his leg gashed deeply by a cornered elk's antler. Blood seeped through the hasty bandaging, and the young man's face had gone grey with pain and blood loss. "Let him choose," Grey Wolf commanded, holding the peace pipe. "Traditional ways or the new path." Young Deer's eyes moved from Red Fox's familiar medicines to Sarah's hybrid remedies. His voice was weak but clear. "The new way. I have seen how the settler woman's stitching leaves less scarring." Sarah moved forward with quiet confidence, her Boston-trained hands steady as she cleaned the wound. Little Hawk prepared their special salve, yucca and yarrow, mixed with techniques learned from garrison doctors. As Sarah began to stitch with careful precision, she spoke softly in Apache, using the healing prayers Little Hawk had taught her, merged with medical knowledge from her past life. Red Fox watched with barely concealed tension as the wound slowly closed under Sarah's care. But it was Morning Star who spoke first, her voice carrying across the hushed gathering. "See how she honors our ways, even as she uses settler skills. This is not destruction of tradition, it is growth." The next test came from an unexpected quarter. Martha Watson appeared at the edge of the gathering, supporting her husband, Samuel. The settler's face was twisted with pain, his arm held rigid. "Broke it falling from the horse," Martha explained, her eyes moving uncertainly across the assembled tribe. "He refused to come, but the pain—" She paused, gathering courage. "We've seen your medicines work before." A murmur ran through the crowd. Even Red Fox seemed startled by this development. Grey Wolf lifted the peace pipe in acknowledgement. "You bring trust to our council. It will be remembered." Sarah and Little Hawk worked together with practiced efficiency, their movements speaking of countless shared healings. She felt for the break while he prepared both traditional pain medicines and settler laudanum. Sarah splinted the arm with techniques learned in Boston, while Little Hawk bound it, using Apache methods that would allow the swelling to subside naturally. Samuel Watson's face slowly relaxed as their combined medicines took effect. "How?" he managed. "How can savage ways and civilized medicine work together?" "There is no savage or civilized in healing," Little Hawk responded, securing the last bandage. "There is only what works and what doesn't. Your arm will tell the true story." As the afternoon progressed, more came forward, Apache and settler alike. A child's fever broke under their dual treatments. An elder's chronic pain eased with their combined herbs. Each success spoke louder than words, drawing the two communities together around the basic human need for healing. Grey Wolf sat through it all, the peace pipe in his hands a reminder of older ways of finding common ground. When the sun began its descent, he stood. "We have seen enough. Red Fox, speak your thoughts." The young warrior's face showed internal struggle. "The medicines work," he admitted reluctantly. "But what of our sacred ways? What becomes of them?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of 10 years' solitude and understanding. "Your ways are not lost, they are strengthened. Like a river joining the sea, they become part of something larger." She gestured to their medicines. "Every remedy we create carries the wisdom of your ancestors. We add to their knowledge, we do not replace it." Little Hawk lifted the peace pipe from Grey Wolf's hands, an action that drew gasps from the gathering. By tradition, only a chief could handle it during council. But as he began to fill it with both traditional tobacco and some of Sarah's healing herbs, his meaning became clear. The pipe itself remained unchanged, but what it contained could grow and adapt. As the sun touched the horizon, Grey Wolf's grandmother, Ancient Walks, emerged from her medicine lodge carrying a small bundle wrapped in white buckskin. The oldest healer in the tribe, she had watched the day's proceedings in silence, her weathered face giving no hint of her thoughts. Now she moved with deliberate steps to where Sarah and Little Hawk stood, the sunset painting the scene in shades of prophecy. "In my dreams," the old woman announced, her voice carrying surprising strength, "I saw this day. I saw medicine taking. Wing like an eagle, carrying healing to all who need it." She held out the bundle. "This is my sunrise blessing bundle. For 40 years I have added to it, each herb, each charm, each prayer, a piece of our people's wisdom." A collective murmur rose from the gathered tribe. The sunrise blessing bundle was sacred, passed from healer to healer across generations. Red Fox stepped forward, protest in his stance, but Ancient Walk silenced him with a look that carried all her years of authority. "I am not finished, young fire," she chided. "Listen before your heart burns too hot." She turned back to Sarah and Little Hawk. "I have watched your medicines today. They carry our wisdom, but fly with new wings. This is as it should be." She unwrapped the bundle slowly, revealing items gathered over decades of healing. Eagle down for gentle touch, hummingbird feathers for quick healing, stones from sacred springs, herbs from secret places. But there, among the traditional items, lay something unexpected, a small silver scissors, clearly of settler make. 30 winters ago, Ancient Walks explained, a trader brought these to me. They worked better than obsidian for certain medicines. Some said using them would weaken our healing ways. Her laugh was soft, but carried iron certainty. But the people I helped did not suffer more because I used settler tools. They healed better. She lifted the scissors, letting them catch the dying sun. Tools are not wisdom. Wisdom is knowing when to use them, how to honor the old while embracing the new. She held the sunrise bundle out to Sarah. Add your medicines to this. Show us how to make the blessings stronger. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she accepted the sacred bundle. With careful movements, she withdrew items from her own medicine pouch. Herbs prepared in new ways, bandages woven with both. People's techniques, salves that combined ancient knowledge with modern understanding. Each item she added with a prayer, sometimes Apache words, sometimes English, the languages weaving together like medicine plants taking root in new soil. Little Hawk watched as settler and Apache healing tools nestled together in the ancient bundle, neither diminishing the other. This is what we sought to build, he said softly, not to replace, but to grow. Red Fox moved forward again, but this time his step held less challenge. The scissors did not make our medicine weaker, he acknowledged slowly. Perhaps I have fought against the wrong enemy. It is not change we must fear, but the loss of understanding. Now you begin to see with a healer's eyes, Ancient Walks approved. Look there. She pointed to where Samuel Watson sat, with his splintered arm, sharing water with the injured young deer. Pain knows no boundaries. Why should healing have them? Grey Wolf stood, his chief's feather catching the last light. Ancient Walks has shown us wisdom's path. Sarah McAllister, you have proved your medicine's worth. You may continue to live in your canyon home, practicing healing arts that honor both people's ways. He turned to his tribe, and any who wish to learn these combined medicines may do so without fear of breaking tradition. Martha Watson stepped forward, her voice carrying clear across the gathering. And will you teach us as well? There are those in the valley who would learn to heal better if pride did not stop our ears. Sarah wrapped the sunrise bundle carefully, each knot a promise. Healing belongs to all who would learn it with respect, she replied. My door will be open to any who come seeking knowledge, whether they wear buckskin or cotton. As darkness settled over the council ground, Little Hawk added sacred tobacco to the peace pipe one final time. But now he mixed it with Sarah's herbs openly, without need for justification or defense. The pipe passed from hand to hand, Apache to settler, warrior to healer, past to future, each breath drawing in the possibility of something new and stronger. The sunrise blessing bundle rested between them, no longer just a collection of Apache medicines, but a testament to how wisdom could grow when different streams of knowledge flowed together. Like the first light of dawn touching the canyon walls, it promised not an end to tradition, but a new day of understanding. In the year that followed the council's decision, Sarah's canyon home became something new, a place where wisdom flowed, as freely as the hidden spring. The symbol of this transformation hung near her cave's entrance, a blanket woven by both Apache and settler hands, its pattern combining traditional geometric designs with healing herbs rendered in careful detail. Morning Star had begun the weaving, her skilled fingers creating the traditional patterns while her baby slept nearby. Martha Watson added her own knowledge of textile work, showing how different looming techniques could strengthen the fabric. Other women from both communities joined in, each adding their own wisdom to the work. As they wove, they shared stories, medicines, and the kind of understanding that could only come from working side by side. The blanket became a living record of their growing knowledge. Apache symbols for healing danced alongside anatomical drawings Sarah remembered from medical Texts. Herbs were depicted in both people's styles, some in realistic settler detail, others in the sacred geometric patterns of Apache tradition. Each edition was discussed, explained, understood, the sharing of knowledge becoming as much a healing as the medicines themselves. Little Hawk often sat with the weavers, adding his own deep knowledge of plants and their spirits to the discussions. He watched his sister teaching settler women the sacred meanings of certain patterns, while Sarah explained to young Apache healers how Boston doctors understood the flow of blood and breath. The old boundaries remained as reference points, not as barriers, like the shaft of his scout's arrow that flew true because it knew both its origin and its destination. Decades later, tribal storytellers would pass around a special staff when, telling of the healing time, carved into its length were two intertwining spirals, one bearing Apache medicine symbols, the other showing settler medical knowledge. Between them, a single eagle feather remained firmly bound, its weathered shaft a testament to endurance. The story became legend, how a Boston lady and an Apache scout had built a bridge between worlds, how their shared wisdom had saved lives. During the Great Fever of '78, how their example had sparked other exchanges of knowledge. Their medicines, neither purely Apache nor solely settler, spread throughout the territory, carried by hands of all colors to those in need. Sarah's journal and Little Hawk's medicine pouch were preserved together, teaching new generations that wisdom knows no boundaries. And in the canyon where it all began, healers still gathered, their words mixing English and Apache as they shared their knowledge beneath the ancient walls that had first sheltered two people brave enough to choose, understanding over fear.